Hey guys, and welcome back. In today's video we're going to be looking at petty revenge stories, and I cannot wait. I don't think I'd ever be able to put revenge on anybody, but I can definitely live vicariously through you guys. So the first one is quite a juicy one. So cheat on my best friend, you will pay with minor inconvenience. My best friend got cheated on by her husband of almost a decade. I gave her my Netflix login for her smart TV. After the Netflix ban, she told me she could still get in and watch sometimes, but in agreement to the divorce, cheater got the TV. So I went in and just put child TV, why only ratings can be accessible through that channel. I could change the password, but I'd have to set my elderly mother up again, so this is the path of least resistance and pettiness. I love that. So basically this person can only watch children's TV now. That's really awkward if they start dating and someone comes over and all they can get access through on Netflix is actually children's TV. But now this came out a day ago, but now I'm pretty sure you can actually like sign someone out via your phone on Netflix. You could just do that. If they don't have the password, then it won't matter, but if they do have the password, then it's kind of ridiculous and kind of like an unnecessary step. But yeah, that's pretty good. That's a good level of pettiness, because like, what are they gonna do? Just stop using it, which is beneficial to you. But yeah, can appreciate you don't want to change the password, but that I thumbs up on that one. Okay, so on to the next one. Roommate's girlfriend tried getting me evicted. I got her dumped. This is an old one, but still entertaining. 7 years ago, I moved into a 4-bedroom house with 3 of my friends. I was the only woman among 3 dudes. One of the roommates was the owner's son, and we were all friends living in college, and honestly it was the best 2 years ever living situation wise. We all had different work schedules, and because I worked the earliest, 6 AM, I had the only downstairs bedroom. My friend, let's call him Jay, who worked night shift and got home at 4:30 AM, had the room above me so that we didn't wake each other coming home. That's smart. During the week, Jay and I would eat breakfast together before he went to bed and I went to work. We had a jar in the kitchen and we'd all throw spare cash in, like $5 to $10 at a time each. And that was for common groceries, like milk, eggs, basic bread, and occasional house meals and beer. Because we were in our early to mid-20s. Have a little beer fund, that's not a bad idea. The rule was always that if you use the last of the common use stuff, you take from the jar to cover the cost and grab it from the store ASAP. When we grab pizza or I'd make a meal for everyone, we use the same fund. This is all very important. About 5 months into the living situation, Jay met Karen and started dating her. He brought her to one of our game nights, introduced her to us to get a feel for how she'd meshed with us. And all was fine when she thought I was only the girlfriend of another roommate. Because we were playing in the dining room right by my room, Karen saw me go into that room to grab a sweater early in the night. Then she saw my roommate, the one she assumed I was dating, go upstairs to grab his phone charger. The entire vibe changed and she started to ask me who I was dating. She was floored when my roommates confirmed I lived there. I had my own room and I wasn't dating any of them. She saved face, said she was just surprised I'd want to live with 3 men, and we moved on. Cam, the owner's son, and I were the only ones that realised that Karen saw this as a problem. Yeah, I know the title gives it away, but I can already see where this is going. After that, she started coming over right after I got off work, and only leaving when Jay went to work. If I came out of my room to the living room, she'd ask why I was out there. If I was going to the kitchen, she'd remark that I was being disrespectful to her and Jay and interrupting their time together. Okay. If I was talking to Jay when she got there, she'd practically grind on him and shove her tongue down his throat. She even complained that I was ruining the mood for doing my laundry. Oh wow. This is just bordering like desperation now. Okay, I will save my thoughts till the end. Jay had made it clear that he knew she was being a problem and had started pushing for them to just chill in his room. Unfortunately, she used the opportunity to make some of the worst porn imitation noises that any of us other roommates had ever heard. We laughed it off and just left those 2 alone. After a couple of weeks, she had gotten drunk before Jay went to work, and we insisted she stay in his room and sleep it off. I literally brought her food and Tylenol because girl was going to feel like hell in the morning. The next morning, Jay came home and started making breakfast for me and him when Karen came down and just started screaming. She woke the other two roommates up. She accused Jay of cheating, accused me of having relations with all the guys, and then made the dumbest statement possible. She demanded I pay Jay back for the food he was wasting on me. Cam literally grabbed a fiver from the jar and slapped it in Jay's hand. Cam and I had a come to Jesus talk with Jay. We both told him if she couldn't deal with me living there, then she could no longer come over. Jay asked for a week to figure things out, tried to claim she was just caught by surprise when she saw him making me breakfast and not thinking clearly. We gave him a week. In that week, mysteriously, the grocery jar was getting raided. We all noticed and talked about it. We noticed my clean dishes were appearing, still clean, in the sink. Little things were disappearing from the common rooms and weirdly appearing in my room. Karen was being so sweet. She was not exactly covert. Cam and I knew she was sowing chaos, but being curious where this was headed, we just watched. After a week, Cam gets a call from his mum asking if I had been going through something lately. Apparently, a concerned party had sent a picture after picture and story upon story about how I was trashing the house and stealing. Karen expected this to get me in trouble. Luckily for me, my landlord was actually worried I was not doing okay and wanted Cam to help me get through it. Cam told me and I started planning my petty revenge. First thing I did was eliminate the grocery jar. I split up what was in it evenly between the four of us and told them that because of the raiders' stash, I felt it needed to go away. Karen didn't like this, but when asked why, she claimed it was rude for me to make a unilateral decision. Cam backed me, battle won. Then I started hanging with Cam in the living room every day. She complained, but Jay told her it's our house, we can do as we please. When she would go to the kitchen, one of us always asked what she was doing in our fridge. She stopped going in our fridge after 2 days. The weekend was here and we knew Jay had an extra overnight shift and Karen was planning to stay in his room so they could hang out the next day. Cue my biggest petty move ever. Just a little information, Cam and I met in college where we both studied theatre, specifically acting. That Friday, we hung out in his room right next to Karen's. We made a bit of a show when Jay left and acted like he could not know that Cam and I were hanging out alone in his room. This caught Karen's attention. We started shaking the bed, two nerdy people hip thrusting the end of the bed to give the illusion the spicy thing was going down. It's quite awkward but oh so entertaining. Within minutes we got a text from Jay asking what we were doing. Cam replied, playing video games. After 10 minutes we stopped the bed shaking and actually did play video games on mute. When Jay demanded a FaceTime session, he saw exactly what he needed to see. Me beating Cam in Mario Party. We cycled through this for a few hours. After a while, we decided to put the finishing touches on. We made a big deal about me needing to go to my room before Jay got home and Karen took the bait. We could see the little bit of light being cut off in the slightly open door by her watching. Cam and I stage kissed and I headed to the living room. Jay came in 10 minutes later to find me watching a movie, normal for me, and asked what was up. I told him I'd been up playing video games all night with Cam. He tells me Karen claimed we were doing the nasty, and I told him we didn't. He goes to bed. The next day, Jay calls a house meeting without Karen. He tells her she's making claims of us having a relationship and hiding it from him. We say she's full of it. We tell him about the frame job she tried to pull, how she went to Cam's mum to get me in trouble. Jay asks our other roommate if he's heard anything from the bedroom. Bro doesn't even flinch and said, I heard, me, calling Cam her bitch and the usual Mario Party shit talk. They weren't banging. Jay asked about the grocery jar. We all told him we suspected Karen. The next day, he broke up with her for trying to turn him against us. He called her a liar and a thief. A few months later, he dated another girl. She was awesome and they're married now. Oh, that's nice. I was a bridesmaid, but the absolute best part, Karen being one of the wait staff and seeing Cam with his wife and me with my fiance. telling them the story of how we once dry humped a mattress fully clothed to get back a thief. Yes, Jay knows the whole story and he didn't mind at all. To address the reason Jay wanted to know if we were actually getting funky, he's the kind of dude that hates useless secrets. If Cam and I were hooking up, he'd be fine with it. If we were hooking up and actively hiding it from him like we couldn't trust him, he'd have an issue. That's why we played into the Jay can't know part. Though Cam says Jay secretly wanted Cam and I to get together, but nah. That's good. Whoa.
Yeah.
Moving on. That is a good story. I do like that. I like how at the end you and Cam, still being friends, are able to, with your respective partners, now be like, this is what we did. We foiled a thief, and it was a heist and all this sort of stuff. Now obviously, like, it sucks because this person is clearly, or were clearly, obsessive and controlling, and that does suck for Jay. And obviously Jay did get caught in the middle, but I mean, Karen was obviously trying to move in and trying to take over where it wasn't really her place to take over. And I completely agree, like, things about the fridge, like, even at my in-laws, and we've been together for 11 years, I don't go in the fridge. It's not my fridge. So the fact that they've been together, I get the impression, like, months, to then be going in a housemate's fridge, like in her partner's fridge. Okay, they're housemates and their students are slightly different, but the disrespect is still the same. It's that whole thing of, like, eating what you shouldn't be eating. That's not your food. It's not your stuff. So yeah, I'm really happy that this worked out the way it did, and I do like your revenge plan because you didn't do anything wrong. You didn't lie to anyone, really. You just led a little breadcrumb trail that didn't really go where this person thought, but it's good that Jay saw exactly what was going on. So yeah, thumbs up on that one. That was a long one. Petty little driving incident. A couple of nights ago, I was getting home late from work and decided to stop at a McDonald's by my house. There was some construction on one of the main roads and the lanes went from 2 to 1 with cones blocking it off. Some jerk decided he absolutely needed to be in front of me and almost hit my car just to cut me off. Oh my god, I've been there. It's the most frustrating thing. I honked at him and he hit the brakes and started to block traffic while flipping me off. No idea what his problem was, as I didn't have any interaction with him prior to this. Well, I have custom LEDs in the grille of my truck that had been installed by someone else before I brought it. I turned on my brights and then the LEDs, which hit his back windshield perfectly. He started to move forward, so I shut them off, but he was moving at a snail's pace, brake checking and swerved towards me every time I tried to pass. So I turned all my lights back on and made sure to stay the perfect distance behind him to ensure maximum annoyance. We were on a one-way, so there was no oncoming traffic, and since he stopped, there wasn't anyone else in front of him, only he was getting it. Guess where he was headed? The exact same McDonald's that I was going to. I pulled in right after him and shined my lights all the way through the drive-thru. We're the only ones there, and I turned my lights off before facing traffic coming out of the drive-thru. After he got his food, he waited for me and started trying to follow me with his brights, but he gave up after a couple of minutes when realised he wasn't making a difference. It was especially satisfying that literally no one but him was getting flashed. That's amazing. So you have lights in the grille of your truck. Yeah, that would have been so irritating for him, but as long as it's done safely and, like you say, no one was around so no one else is getting affected, that's good revenge. I mean, it sucks that he was also going to McDonald's, but I mean, how funny that he tried to get you back with the lights, and yeah, that it didn't make any difference because it wasn't as effective. That's brilliant. I'm there for that. Just so I didn't follow you home. That's the only thing. You be safe. Having the final victory while being fired. Spicy. I worked at a church as the children youth pastor. The personnel committee directly oversaw my position. The committee head was rotating was rotating off due to the end of his required time. I was told of the rumoured man, Scott, to be nominated for the new head. He was described as a monster. Scott was a career hatchet man. A hatchet man works for a large company that buys out other potential rivals. The hatchet man determines which assets are viable, which included employees. Many times the company is pieced out and no employees are retained. The only personality that can successfully execute this job is a psychopath. He was both a psychopath and a narcissist. The outgoing committee head told me a story about his son, which worked in HE for the large company. Scott had a meeting with management in which he demanded more authority and control because he was the best asset they had. The following day, Scott's department was dissolved. This occurred at the next 2 consecutive jobs of Scott. He only lasted a few months at both jobs. This doesn't sound good. Scott became the head of the committee but never had an actual conversation with me. On a Sunday I preached, I made a joke. Scott was so insulted that he called an emergency meeting to fire me. The committee voted against Scott. Scott arranged a meeting with me and my committee liaison at a restaurant for breakfast. Scott informed me that the meeting is strictly to getting to know you and not business. Scott lied. At the end of the meeting, Scott informed of his disgust by the joke and other subjects, mental health, I had spoken of while preaching. My liaison later informed he was unaware Scott would address any of those issues at the breakfast. The committee had actually told Scott how wrong he was about the mental health issue. Scott presented the criticism as unanimous opinion. Oh wow. I know this personality and am aware they won't stop until I'm fired. They are patient to wait until the next offence for a chance to fulfil their vendetta. The opportunity came 8 months later. I used an illustration during a children's sermon. I later found some people were offended by. Scott called another emergency committee meeting. I was informed by my boss, the senior pastor, who also didn't like me, in which he said he'll come to bat for me. The next day I arrived and asked how the meeting went. The pastor looked at me blankly. I asked, how bad? The pastor was speechless. He said to give him some time. So I'm fired. I'll go start packing, I responded. The pastor told me not to leave because a meeting would happen soon. Scott arrived to meet with me and the pastor. The allegations are presented, an inappropriate joke and illustration. My wife was 8 months pregnant. The committee knew the backlash church members would create if the reasons were made public. The richest members loved me and thought the joke/illustration were great. My wife's pregnancy would create a massive controversy. I was given a 3-month severance dependent on the conditions. I did not trash the church on social media, contact the students' parents, initiate conversation with congregation members, or be on church property during those 3 months. My brother was informed the severance was hush money. I was quiet and apologetic during the meeting. Following my acknowledgement and signing of the severance paper, Scott began to berate me. He belittled my work and character. I did not respond. Scott finally said, I don't know why you think it's necessary to say an inappropriate comment every time you're in front of the congregation. Here's where the petty revenge takes place. Scott took pride in his control of both himself and others. Scott had decided to take the moment of me being down to rant against me. Scott felt he had finally been victorious. I was fully aware of Scott's perceived victory. I calmly responded, it couldn't have been every time. I was chosen and substituted for announcements multiple times and said nothing offensive. I disproved Scott's insult. Scott became enraged and began yelling at me. I smiled on the inside. I had exposed Scott for the man he truly is and caused him to display terrible behaviour. The pastor intervened with, you've already discussed the reasons for termination and don't need to continue. The pastor knew I had baited Scott to embarrassment and Scott would continue to escalate. Scott and the pastor had formed volunteers would take over my role. They assumed I did so little, free labour could easily replace me. All of the areas folded a few months later because the volunteers were unable to spend a fraction of the time and energy I did. The teenagers no longer trusted the church and never returned. The church posted the position a few months later. 2 years later, with a $7,000 increase in salary as compared to mine, the position hasn't been filled. Wow. That was a lot to take in. I mean, that sucks for you. To be fair, and this is, I'm not on anyone's side, what was the joke? Like, what did you say, or what was the illustration? I'm going to see if it says in the comments. It doesn't actually say in the comments what the joke was, or what the illustration was of. So we obviously can't mention that, I guess, but it would be good to know why Scott was offended. Is it because I don't know, you said something that he's resonated with, or he's scared about? Like, who knows? But it really does feel like he was after you, and yeah, that sucks. He is, I mean, I know this isn't an am I the a-hole, but he definitely is. And the fact he can't keep a job for more than like a short amount of time is a huge red flag. I think your revenge is pretty good, and it's good that you did expose Scott's behaviour and his real personality. That's really good. But did he keep his job? Like, you're sitting in front of a group, in front of a committee, from what I understand, and you know, you're accepting what's happened. You're like, fine, but I didn't say anything disrespectful or rude or anything like that, and Scott's just lost his, like, he started berating you and he's just lost it, but he still got his job. Like, where's that? And the fact your wife was 8 months pregnant at the time, I mean, that sucks. That is, that does suck. But I'm glad to hear further down the comments that you did get another job, so everything worked out fine for you, and that's great. But yeah, he's a douche, and it's one of those things where you can do revenge, like on like a private thing and only you know about it, but the fact you've exposed him, icing on the cake, that. So yeah, that's another good one. So the last one that we've got, this is about people borrowing things and it's coming back damaged, and I hate when this happens. I'm really curious about how this has turned out. Borrow my camera without asking and return it damaged? Sure. This was quite a few years ago when I was in the midst of separating from my then wife. I had found out she cheated, which is kind of relevant to the story. Oh, I'm sorry, that sucks. We were urgently getting our house ready to sell, and since we were broke, it meant unhappily cohabiting and doing a lot of the work ourselves. We'd agreed to spend the weekend tidying the yard and painting window frames, but at the last minute she said her boss had asked her to take a colleague's place on a conference trip. Fine, I'll spend the weekend tidying the yard by myself. You might enjoy it more actually. If it is really awkward and really uncomfortable, you might enjoy the bit of downtime, like just being alone. Sometime during the week I noticed that my digital camera, this was in the days before the ubiquitous smartphone cameras, was missing from its usual spot on the bookshelf. I needed some photos of it, so I spent a while looking for it, but eventually gave up. Sunday night comes around and my ex returns from her conference, drops her bags and heads straight out to a family dinner. The living situation being somewhat tense, we both found ways to keep out of the house. The camera had mysteriously reappeared in its usual place, but now with a big scrape on the corner like it had been dropped on concrete. Now this wasn't a top-end camera by any means, but fairly new, and something I'd paid for myself out of a meagre pay. Luckily it seemed to work fine. The next day while she was at work, I went to retrieve my photos from the camera and found the SD card full of photos of her on what looked like a romantic weekend away with a guy, who I assumed was her boyfriend. So not only had she taken my camera without asking and damaged it, but she had lied about the conference and left me to work on my own so she could enjoy a relaxing weekend with her new boyfriend. She obviously hadn't expected me to use the camera right away. I was ready to delete all her photos and call her on her BS, but for the sake of ongoing relationship property negotiations I had to avoid drama, so I decided on some petty revenge instead. I transferred all of her photos onto my computer and started to put my amateur Photoshop skills to use. I like where this is going. I spent the next 1.5 hours going through every picture that featured her new boyfriend and editing his face in each one, giving him blotchy pallid skin, subtly morphing his features to make him asymmetrical, making one eye bigger than the other, making his teeth yellow, giving him a slightly unhinged look. I restrained myself so that it wouldn't be obvious that the photos had been edited, but he definitely looked unappealing in a way that you might not be able to put your finger on. I transferred all of the photos back onto the camera overwriting the originals, and then I put the camera back on the shelf and went about my day. The photos disappeared off my camera sometime over the next few days, so I guess my ex had moved them elsewhere to cover her tracks. I never heard anything about my revenge, but to this day it warms my heart that I ruined the memory of that romantic weekend for her. That was good. I like that, because she can't say anything, or she's going to admit fault. She's going to admit that she lied, and she's going to admit that actually she's off doing things that she shouldn't really be doing. I wonder if she had admitted it, if you'd found out through her, if that would affect the negotiations for the house and for everything, because you are the victim here, you are the person who's been cheated on. So I wonder, I don't know how it works, I wonder if that maybe that's why she didn't say anything. She thought, oh god, maybe she didn't realise. Maybe she doesn't know to this day that you've changed those photos. Who knows? But yeah, that was very restrained of you. Anyway guys, that's all we've got time for in today's video. I hope you liked the video. If you liked the video, leave a thumbs up, it really helps me out. Do hit that subscribe button. I'm trying to upload weekly. I've seen content like this, Am I the A-hole, revenge, confessions, seem to be doing really well, so do let me know if you like this. If you do, I'll do some more, I'll do different subjects, and I'll give you my thoughts and views on those. But hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you in the next one.